Lisa and I had just celebrated our 20th anniversary, a momentous occasion filled with laughter and love, surrounded by our three incredible kids, Jasmine, 16, Casey, 13, and our 15-year-old son, Jake. My name is Joel, and at 42, I was a proud dad and husband, at least I thought I was. When Lisa and I tied the knot, she had just turned 20, and I was her first and only love. Though I was 2 years older with a couple of past relationships, nothing compared to the bond we had forged over the years. Lisa was a beautiful woman, standing 5 feet 6 inches with blonde hair that glimmered in the sunlight and captivating blue eyes that sparkled with life. Her figure, a slender 105 pounds, was the envy of many. We had built an incredible life together, filled with laughter, tears, and countless memories. We dedicated ourselves to creating a loving home and nurturing environment for our children. Our journey wasn't always smooth. We navigated the joys of birthdays and first days of school, celebrated plays and graduations, and weathered the storms that life threw our way. Jake's broken bones from football and the stitches from soccer mishaps, along with Lisa's cancer scare, were just a few of the trials we faced. I vividly recall those long, sleepless nights spent in the hospital, holding her hand during chemotherapy and blood transfusions, trying to balance caring for the kids while keeping everything together. Her recovery 7 years ago was a triumph, and we celebrated the blessing of having her back healthy and vibrant. It brought us even closer together as a family, reinforcing our bond. As you can imagine, raising 3 kids, juggling bills, and trying to save for college was no easy feat. With so much on our plates, trips to the gym and watching our diets fell by the wayside. Over 20 years, it was easy to pack on a few pounds here and there. I had gained about 20 extra pounds myself, but we didn't let that bother us. Our focus was on the kids and their future. I worked as a production manager for an engineering company, while Lisa served as the purchasing director for a mid-sized manufacturing firm. We both worked hard but always made it a point to be there for our children, even if our lives began to feel a bit monotonous. Despite the routine, our love life remained strong. We were not into anything extravagant, but we made sure to keep the flame alive. We found ways to be intimate, whether through shared moments in the living room after the kids went to bed or late-night talks that brought us closer together. It was comfortable and fulfilling. Then everything changed when our new neighbors, Maria and Roger, moved in. In their late 20s, they had no kids and loved throwing weekend parties. Maria was a gym instructor, boasting an incredible physique, while Roger was 30 and equally fit. Their energy was infectious, and they quickly became the life of the neighborhood. As Lisa approached her 38th birthday, she had gained about 35 pounds. It didn't bother me at all. I had packed on some extra weight myself during those busy years. However, Maria convinced Lisa that she was still a beautiful woman and could easily lose the weight if she joined her at the gym. Initially skeptical, Lisa finally decided to take the plunge. Fast forward 2 years, just before Lisa's 40th birthday. I could hardly recognize her. She had transformed, shedding those extra pounds and reaching a weight of 110 pounds. Her figure was reminiscent of the woman I had fallen in love with 2 decades earlier. I was in awe of her transformation, and I couldn't help but compliment her. She looked absolutely stunning. With this physical transformation came a newfound confidence for Lisa. It was as if a light had been switched on inside her. Our sex life blossomed as her energy soared. She seemed to rediscover her youth, and I was more than willing to keep up with her, wanting nothing more than to see her happy. Of course, with her new body came a shift in her fashion sense. Under Maria's influence, Lisa began wearing more revealing, stylish clothes that highlighted her curves. The way she carried herself changed too. There was an added swagger in her step, and I could see her confidence radiating in social situations. While I was proud of her transformation, I couldn't shake a slight unease. The dynamic in our relationship was shifting, and I began to wonder how this change would affect our family. Would we still be the same couple who had weathered so many storms together? I felt a nagging doubt creeping in, a sense that the comfortable routine we had established might be upended. As Lisa blossomed, I noticed her spending more time with Maria. They would go to the gym together, shop for new clothes, and enjoy nights out that seemed to last longer than they used to. I tried to be supportive, reminding myself that this was all part of her new journey. Yet, the more she changed, the more I felt like a bystander in my own life. Then came the day that would change everything. I returned home from work one evening to find Lisa laughing with Maria in the living room. The sound of her joy was infectious, but it struck a nerve. I realized I was no longer the center of her universe, I had competition. And the thought of that sent chills down my spine. Little did I know, the journey ahead would test everything we had built together. As I watched Lisa thrive, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were on the precipice of something that would alter the course of our lives forever. Lisa was reveling in her new body, eager to show it off in tighter, more revealing outfits that reflected the latest fashion trends. At first, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of concern as she strutted off to work, looking like a confident young woman while I spent my days wearing my dad's old suits, feeling more like her father than her partner or husband. Despite my insecurities, Lisa always reassured me, insisting that looks didn't matter. "You're still the same man I've loved for the last 20 years, she'd say, and that love will never change. The only difference now was that I got to enjoy a sexy wife instead of the woman I had once known. For her 40th birthday, I wanted to do something special. I organized a big party, inviting friends and coworkers, and rented a small hall at a local hotel. We had a live band, delicious catering, and an open bar. Lisa arrived in the sexiest little dress and new heels, fresh from a day at the salon, looking every bit like a supermodel. I watched as men's eyes followed her, and it was clear she was loving the attention. Her newfound confidence transformed her into a more vibrant, carefree spirit, a stark contrast to the 40-year-old mother I was used to. The party was a hit, and Lisa made a point to thank Maria, her trainer, for helping her regain her youth. She talked about how all the work had helped her blossom into who she was and how it had revitalized our marriage. I had to admit, I loved looking at her new body and her playful attitude. But there was a nagging feeling in the back of my mind as I watched her slow dance and flirt with several younger men from her office. Over the years of our marriage, she had never danced with other men or flirted so openly. Now, she seemed to revel in the attention, and while I wanted her to enjoy her party, it troubled me. That night, after the festivities had wound down, I brought it up. Lisa was quick to apologize, her expression sincere. "I never wanted you to feel jealous or uncomfortable," she said softly. "I just got carried away with the excitement and the drinks. I promise it won't happen again." To make up for it, she turned our evening into something special. That night, she was a tigress in bed, and we both enjoyed the fireworks, her multiple orgasms echoing my satisfaction. It felt like we were rekindling something beautiful, and she thanked me for the party in her own special way. Life went back to a comfortable routine after that. Lisa continued to come home late a few nights a week due to her workouts, and I made it a point to have dinner ready for the kids when she did. Jake, now 15, had an after-school club on Thursdays and needed a ride home. Lisa had agreed to pick him up since his school was several miles away and involved crossing some busy roads. Jake, however, wasn't thrilled about being picked up. "I'm 15. I can walk home," he protested. I understood his desire for independence, but I explained the dangers of the roads he'd have to cross. "If you want to be in the school club, you have to ride home with us, no exceptions," I insisted. After some resistance, he agreed, and I picked him up every day except Thursdays due to my staff meetings. One week, Lisa got caught up with work and completely forgot to pick Jake up. After 40 minutes of waiting, he decided to walk home. That was one of the few times anyone in the family saw me genuinely upset. When Lisa finally got home, she was apologetic, clearly distressed by my anger. Seeing me lose my temper affected her, and she let both me and Jake know how sorry she was. "I'll make sure it doesn't happen again," she promised, her tone serious. I could see the worry etched on her face, and in that moment, I realized how much we both cared about this family we were building together. It was a reminder that no matter the challenges, we were in this together, and I hoped we could navigate our new dynamics with understanding and love. It would never happen again. After I cooled off, I convinced myself it was just a mistake, no harm, no foul. Life at home returned to its usual rhythm, and that night, Lisa made it up to me in bed. Things were going well financially, work was stable, and the family seemed generally happy. Except for me. About 2 months later, I noticed our sex life had dwindled from 4 or 5 nights a week to just once or twice. When we did connect, it felt like a shadow of what it used to be. Lisa had become increasingly self-absorbed, obsessing over her appearance. She was getting facials, and her hair and nails were done weekly. It seemed that once she hit the big 40, she was desperate to turn back the clock. New clothes and shoes filled our closet, and whenever I expressed concern about the money she was spending, I was met with an angry glare. "Don't you see? I'm doing this for you," she snapped, her tone icy. "You're the one who benefits from having a young, pretty wife." I wanted to tell her that all her efforts were in vain. I was getting no satisfaction and our intimacy had suffered. I missed the old Lisa, but I assured her I still loved her, even if it was a different version of her now. Late nights at the gym and outings with Maria, our neighbor and fitness instructor, became my escape. Finally, I decided it was time for a weekend getaway to reconnect. I loved Lisa and wanted to put my foot down, hoping to restore some normalcy to our lives. The following week, I planned a romantic dinner for Friday night where I would reveal my getaway plans. On Tuesday, I let her know I had made reservations for dinner and arranged for her parents to watch the kids. As I watched her get ready for work that Thursday morning, I couldn't help but notice her new dress, flashy and over the top for the office, paired with dark pantyhose and red high heels. She looked stunning but way too dressed up for work. When I asked her about it, she explained that the big bosses were coming in and she wanted to make a good impression. I knew better than to start a fight, so I held my tongue, but as I left the house that morning, a knot of worry tightened in my stomach. I loved her, but I didn't like this new version of her. Maybe it was my own insecurity, I hadn't shed my extra weight, and when we were together, we didn't look like a couple anymore. I felt like I had a trophy wife without the love and intimacy we once shared, and I desperately hoped our weekend getaway would help us reconnect. However, fate had other plans. That Thursday afternoon, at 4 p.m., my phone buzzed during a staff meeting. It was the hospital. My heart sank as they explained that Jake had been brought to the emergency room and needed immediate surgery. I barely heard the rest of the conversation, all I could think about was getting to my son. I dashed out of the meeting, sprinted to my car, and drove like a madman to the hospital, which was about 15 minutes away. I called Lisa multiple times, but there was no answer. Panicking, I called her parents, asking them to pick up our daughters and head to the hospital to be with Jake. As I arrived, my heart raced. I tried to reach Lisa again, leaving her desperate messages and texts, wondering where she was. She always answered her phone. What was different today? When I got to the hospital, I was met by frantic doctors. I signed all sorts of paperwork, handed over my insurance card, and rushed to see my son. My heart dropped when I laid eyes on him. He was unconscious, covered in blood, and it looked bad. A broken leg, cuts, and bruises marred his body. The sight sent a jolt of fear through me. My little boy was in pain, and I felt utterly helpless. As I stood there, the weight of everything crashed over me, the fear for my son, the uncertainty in my marriage, and the longing for the connection I once had with Lisa. The getaway I had planned felt miles away, overshadowed by this moment of crisis. I pressed a gentle kiss to Jake's forehead, feeling my heart shatter as tears streamed down my face while they wheeled him away to the operating room. The sterile corridors of the hospital seemed to close in on me, the harsh fluorescent lights reflecting the chaos swirling in my mind. Alone, scared, and desperate, I felt an overwhelming urge to call Lisa, but my fingers hesitated over my phone. Where was she? They led me to the surgery waiting room, where my two daughters, Jasmine and Casey, sat anxiously, their eyes wide with worry. Lisa's parents, Edward and Mary, were there too, their faces lined with concern. They looked to me for answers, and as I tried to steady my voice, I relayed everything I knew, including the unsettling fact that Lisa hadn't picked Jake up from school. "That's so unlike her," I said, my heart racing. "I'm really worried about her. She hasn't answered her phone at all." The realization hung heavy in the air, wrapping us all in a cloak of uncertainty. "Maybe she got caught up with something," Edward suggested, but the doubt in his voice betrayed his own worry. "It's not like her to just disappear." "I'm going to call her office again," I announced, my hands shaking as I dialed the number. When someone finally picked up, I asked about Lisa's whereabouts, desperation creeping into my voice. "Our son is in the hospital after an accident, and I really need to find her." The receptionist hesitated before responding, her voice tinged with confusion. "She hasn't been seen since she left for lunch. She left at 1 p.m. with Mr. Donnie, one of our suppliers." A cold wave of panic washed over me. "Can I have his number?" I demanded, my mind racing. I needed to reach him, to find out where Lisa might be. After a brief wait, she finally provided me with his contact information. I thanked her, urging her to call me immediately if she heard anything. Hanging up, I dialed Donnie's number, but all I got was voicemail. The sickening feeling in my stomach deepened. Not only was I on the verge of losing my son, but now my wife was missing, and I felt utterly helpless. Tears flowed freely down my face, a mix of anguish and frustration. Mary, Lisa's mom, wrapped her arms around me, whispering reassurances that I could barely hear over the pounding in my chest. "We'll find her," she said softly, but my anger was beginning to boil beneath the surface. Then, amidst my rising fear and despair, I heard Jasmine's voice cut through the chaos. "Dad. I found Mom." I turned to see Jasmine holding her phone triumphantly, a spark of hope in her eyes. She set up that Find Me app. "It shows where she is." The relief washed over me like a wave as she pointed to a flashing red dot on her screen. "She's right here." "Where?" I asked, urgency surging through me. Jasmine zoomed in, and after a few tense moments, the location popped up, a hotel downtown. The realization hit me hard, I couldn't believe it. Everyone's expression shifted from worry to surprise. I quickly formulated a plan in my mind. Without wasting another second, I began typing furiously on my phone. "I need to call the hotel," I said, determination flooding my veins. As I dialed the hotel's number, my heart raced. "Can you connect me to Mr. Donnie's room?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady despite the chaos within me. After a brief hold, a man finally answered, irritation dripping from his tone. "Hello? Is this Mr. Donnie?" I asked, trying to maintain control. "Yes, how can I help you?" "Please put Lisa on the phone," I urged. Silence fell for a moment before he replied, "Sorry, there's no Lisa here. You must have the wrong number." Frustration surged through me. "Listen carefully, Donnie. I'm her husband. Our son is in critical condition at the hospital. I know she's with you, and I need to speak to her now." There was another long silence, and my anger boiled over. "If something happens to my son before I get to talk to her, I swear I will find you, and I will make you pay. Do you understand?" My voice was now a low growl, each word laced with desperation. Finally, I heard movement on the line, and then Lisa's voice broke through, shaky and nervous. "Hello? Lisa, it's me," I said, relief flooding through me, but the gravity of the situation still loomed large. "Jake is in surgery right now, and I need you to come back to the hospital. He needs you." There was a pause, and I could hear the tension in her breath. I'm on my way, but I got caught up. I'm so sorry." "Just hurry," I said, my voice cracking. "He's about to go under, and I don't want him to be alone. Please." "I'll be there as fast as I can," she promised, but I could hear the hesitation in her voice. I hung up, my heart racing, and turned back to the waiting room, where my family still hovered, worry etched on their faces. "Did you reach her?" Mary asked, her eyes filled with concern. "She's on her way," I said, though doubt gnawed at me. Would she truly come? The fear of losing both my son and my wife settled heavily on my shoulders. As we waited, the minutes stretched into what felt like hours. My daughters clung to each other, their faces pale. Edward paced the room, and Mary sat beside me, squeezing my hand. I could feel the weight of the world pressing down, each second ticking by like a reminder of how fragile everything was. Finally, the doors to the surgery room swung open, and a nurse stepped out. My heart raced as she approached, her expression unreadable. "Are you the family of Jake Thompson?" she asked, her voice steady but gentle. "Yes, that's us," I replied, standing up. "How is he?" The nurse took a breath, her eyes softening. "The surgery went well. He'll be in recovery soon, but he's going to be okay." Relief washed over me like a tidal wave. I felt my knees weaken, and I leaned against the wall for support. Jasmine and Casey rushed to my side, their faces lighting up with hope. "Can we see him?" Jasmine asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes, but only for a few minutes. He'll need his rest," the nurse replied, guiding us toward the recovery room. As we walked, I felt a flicker of hope igniting within me. Maybe everything would turn out all right. I clung to that thought, hoping Lisa would arrive soon to share in the relief, to reassure us that we were still a family, no matter the storm we faced. I was steady and composed, my voice firm as I spoke into the phone. "Lisa, listen closely. Jake was hit by a car while he was walking home from school. He's in surgery and in critical condition. When you're done with your boyfriend, please come to the surgery waiting room at X hospital. Do you understand?" The moment I hung up, I heard her scream, and it echoed in my mind as the call disconnected. I was so wrapped up in the gravity of the situation that I momentarily forgot about the two girls and Lisa's parents who were in the room with me. Their faces turned pale as the reality of my words sank in. All the emotion from the day, the shock of hearing my wife's infidelity, collided in my chest, and for the first time, tears streamed down my face. I knelt on the floor, sobbing uncontrollably as my daughters rushed to hug me, their own tears soaking into my shirt. Our neighbor, Maria, and her husband, Roger, stood by, sharing in the sadness of the moment. I could feel the weight of their concern. I knew they were all looking to me for strength. I took a deep breath, wiped my eyes, and stood up, trying to regain my composure. "I'm so sorry for what you just heard," I said, my voice shaky. I lost it when I heard her answer the phone. It seems Lisa spent the afternoon in bed with some salesman from work instead of picking up Jake. She's with him now, but I'm sure she'll be here as soon as she knows what's happened. I turned to Lisa's parents, who were standing in stunned silence. "Please keep her away from me when she arrives. I'm not sure how I'll react." I caught sight of the anger in Mary's eyes, Lisa's mother. Mary was a force to be reckoned with and had raised her daughter to be better than this. She had no idea Lisa had been living a double life. Jasmine, my oldest, still sobbing, looked up at me with wide, tear-filled eyes. "Dad, is Mom cheating on you?" "It appears that she is," I replied gently, "but you can ask her when she gets here. Right now, we need to focus on praying for your brother. He needs us." About 20 minutes later, the waiting room doors swung open, and Lisa walked in. Before she could even register the gravity of the situation, Mary marched up to her and slapped her hard across the face, the sound echoing in the tense room. Lisa stumbled back, her eyes wide, the shock and disbelief written all over her face. "We raised you better than this," Mary yelled, her voice trembling with anger. "This is all your fault. I hope you're proud of yourself." "Mom, it's not like that," Lisa protested, tears streaming down her cheeks. Her father, visibly upset, stepped in, grabbing Mary's arm. "Mary, stop. Lisa, we all know what you've been doing. It's a shame you cared more for your lover than your son. Now Jake is fighting for his life because you were with another man." Jasmine's voice cut through the tension. "I hate you. You cheated on Dad, and now Jake might die. I hope you die." The scene was chaotic, a train wreck unfolding before my eyes. Lisa glanced in my direction, seeking some kind of support, but when she saw the look on my face, she turned away and sat alone in a chair, isolated from the rest of us. For the next 30 minutes, we sat in a painful silence, anxiously waiting for news about Jake. Then finally, a doctor entered the waiting room. His expression was grave, and my heart sank as he began to speak. "Jake has several broken bones and a punctured lung, which we've stabilized," he explained. "However, he's facing a serious issue with internal bleeding. He's lost a lot of blood, and we need to take some samples to see what we can do." The words hung in the air like a heavy fog. In that moment, the reality of what was happening hit me harder than anything else. Our family was in crisis, and while I had been focused on Lisa's betrayal, my primary concern had to shift back to our son. We needed to rally together, regardless of our personal pain, because Jake was counting on us. As we sat in the hospital waiting room, the atmosphere was thick with tension. When the nurse asked if we could donate blood, everyone nodded in agreement. While we waited for our turns, I glanced over at Lisa. I couldn't help but ask, "Will we learn anything from the blood test?" Her response shattered me. "Joel, he's Jake," she choked out, her voice cracking as tears streamed down her face. She buried her head between her knees, rocking back and forth as if trying to escape the reality of the situation. I could hardly bear it, knowing how much she was hurting. It turned out that my blood type matched Jake's, and soon after, we were donating several pints. Once we finished, I asked everyone to give Lisa and me a moment alone. The room fell silent as they stepped away, and I turned to Lisa, who was avoiding eye contact. I noticed her clothes were a mess. It was clear she had rushed out of the hotel room to get here. "Lisa, you look terrible. Your nylons are torn, your makeup is smudged, and your hair hasn't even been brushed. You smell like you just got out of bed with someone. It's disrespectful." Her head shot up, her eyes wide with shock. "He's not my boyfriend," she protested, her voice trembling. "Please don't say that. There's no one else. I only love you." "If he's not your boyfriend, then are you just sleeping with random guys? You haven't wanted to be with me for 2 months. Last night, you said you had a headache. Were you just saving yourself for him?" "Joel, please. This isn't the time or place to discuss this. Just go home, clean up, and come back looking presentable. Our kids and your parents don't need to see you like this." "I don't want to talk about your betrayal or our divorce until Jake is better," I said firmly. "Divorce? No, Joel, you can't divorce me. I love you. Please don't say that." "Lisa, we will discuss our future later. Right now, I can't waste my energy on you. I need to focus on Jake." My heart was heavy, but I was resolute. "Just go home and get cleaned up. If you can't drive, I'll have your dad take you, or I'll call an Uber. You need to leave now. Jake won't be out of surgery for a while, and he needs you to be here when he wakes up. The last thing he needs is to see you like this." She stood up, tears still falling, and whispered, "I'm so sorry," before leaving. About 2 hours later, Lisa returned, her makeup gone, her hair in a messy ponytail, wearing jeans and a cozy sweater. She had stopped crying, but her face still bore the marks of humiliation and despair. She sat down with her parents while our daughters stayed by my side. I gathered my girls close. Listen, we need to let go of any resentment toward your mom. Right now, our focus has to be on Jake. We'll have time to talk about everything later, but for now, we need to be a family. For the next 2 days, we took turns keeping vigil by Jake's bedside, who remained in a medically induced coma. Each hour felt like an eternity as we held on to hope. Finally, on the 3rd day, we received positive news from the doctors. Jake was going to be okay. He would need to stay in the hospital for a bit longer, but he should be able to come home in about a week. Tears of relief streamed down our faces as we embraced one another. Lisa tried to inch closer to me, but I gently pushed her away, wanting to focus on our daughters. I could see the turmoil in her eyes. Her world had imploded, and she had no idea how to reintegrate herself into the family she had jeopardized. With the family taking turns at the hospital, there was no place for Lisa to sleep. But on that 3rd day, it became clear that the healing process wouldn't just be about Jake, it would be about all of us finding our way back to each other, if that was even possible. I decided it was time to let Lisa know how I wanted to move forward. Now that Jake was on the mend, I told her I'd be sleeping at home again, but I made it clear, I didn't want her in my bed. Since she was the one pursuing new relationships, I thought it was only fair that she move her things into the guest room. Tears filled her eyes as she pleaded with me not to kick her out, insisting that she loved me. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. Right now, until Jake fully recovers, there is no us. You're the mother of our children, and we need you to help with his recovery. But until I figure out what I want for our future, I can't see you as my wife anymore. More tears flowed, but she understood. After a moment, she gathered her things and moved into the guest room. I sat down with the girls, and we all agreed to keep the situation from Jake until he was well enough to handle it. His recovery was our top priority. I turned the living room into Jake's recovery space, renting a hospital bed and a wheelchair, and even hired a daytime nurse to assist us. Preparing for Jake's return home became my focus. With him in the living room, immobile and unaware, the girls and I were determined to keep our arrangement a secret. As for the driver who had hit Jake, it turned out he worked for a paint company. During the investigation, the police discovered he had been vaping, under the influence, and texting at the exact moment of the accident. Our attorneys recognized we had a strong case, and they filed a lawsuit for a substantial amount of compensation. Once the jury heard the full story, the company realized they were in deep trouble and offered us a hefty settlement to avoid an even larger punitive damage payout. While the settlement didn't ease our anger and grief, it did ensure Jake received the best medical treatments and physical therapy. It also secured our kids' college funds and allowed me to take a leave from work to be there for Jake during the 18-month recovery process. After Jake was released from the hospital, we brought him home and introduced him to his new room. We set it up with a hospital bed, a remote for the TV, and all his favorite video games, making sure he felt as comfortable as possible during his rehabilitation. Having several day nurses to help us turned out to be a blessing, especially with Maria and Roger coming over daily to lend a hand. With our daughters, we all adjusted to this new normal. Roger and I spent a lot of time talking about life, and he was supportive of my plans. Meanwhile, Lisa's parents suggested counseling, hoping we could work things out. I told them multiple times that I wasn't ready for that and that my focus had to remain on helping Jake through this tough time. As for Lisa and me, we only spoke when we were together with Jake. I could tell that he sensed something was wrong. He was always the sensitive one in the family. One day, while we were alone, he looked up at me with those big eyes and asked what was going on. He asked me to forgive her, reminding me, "Mom loves you, and I can tell she's been hurting." It broke my heart a little, and I had to wipe away a tear before gently telling him that our issues weren't his concern and that he should focus on getting better. That was the moment I realized I needed to confront the situation and make some decisions. So I told Lisa we were going out to dinner on Friday night to have a serious talk. That night, Maria and Roger would be watching the kids. We chose our favorite Italian restaurant, hoping the familiar atmosphere would ease the tension. After a couple of drinks, the air was thick with unspoken words. I knew we needed to lay everything on the table, our feelings, our future, and the impact of what had happened. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. I knew it was time for the talk. I signaled to the waiter to give us a moment before we placed our orders. This was the first time since that fateful day that I was going to speak directly to Lisa. Up until now, I had been answering questions or going along with conversations, but tonight was different. I had to lay everything out on the table. "Lisa," I began, my voice steady but my heart racing, "I know it's been tough for you. It's not fair that you've been sleeping in the guest room since the accident." I paused, searching her eyes for a flicker of understanding. "I haven't had much time to think about our future, but over the past few days, I've come to a decision that I hope will relieve some of the stress our family has been feeling." I took a deep breath. "I'll look for an apartment near the house so you can move back into the master bedroom. Once Jake is back on his feet, I'll start the divorce process. I want to wait until he's better before he knows the full reason behind our separation." As the words left my mouth, I saw a tear slide down her cheek. My heart ached, like a boy who had just lost his best friend. All those years of love felt tarnished by one act of selfishness, and now we were both paying the price for her choices. "Is there any way you could forgive me and let me back into your life?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Lisa, I love you," I replied, feeling the weight of my words. "I probably always will. But losing you has been the hardest thing that's ever happened to me, second only to Jake's accident. I just don't see a way back. Your selfish act of putting your boyfriend before our family and betraying my trust is something I'm not sure I'll ever get over. Remember, Jake almost died because you needed to be with Donnie. Think about that and put yourself in my shoes." She flinched at the mention of Donnie. "Don't say his name," she pleaded. "I've hated myself ever since that day. I know I messed up, and I don't deserve anything from you or the girls, but is there anything I can do?" I shook my head. "Honestly, I don't think so. As far as I know, you haven't done anything to resolve the situation. That just shows me that you really don't care. Once we divorce, you can go back to your boyfriend or anyone else you want. With your looks and your confidence, I'm sure you could have any man you like." She looked at me, her expression hardening. "I deserve that. But since the accident, all I've tried to do is be there for Jake. I've avoided thinking about what I did to you. Making things right isn't as simple as asking for another chance," I said, my voice rising slightly. "You want to make it right? Show me that you mean it. But to be honest, every time I think about the months leading up to the accident, how you treated me, the lack of intimacy, your narcissism, I have to believe you really didn't care. I was there for you during your illness. I worshipped the ground you walked on. And you tossed that love away like it was nothing." I took a breath, struggling to keep my emotions in check. "You gave what was once mine to another man. You allowed him to use you, and God knows what you did with him. I don't know how I can get past that." Lisa's eyes were filled with regret, but I needed answers. "Tell me, how long were you dating Donnie before that day?" "I was never with him before that," she insisted, her voice trembling. "It was only that one time, and there was no one else." "That wasn't my question," I interjected, frustration rising. "I asked how long you were dating Donnie. You two were obviously making plans before that day. I can guess you were having lunches together, maybe after-hours drinks, special texts, or emails. If I checked your phone, would I find evidence of a relationship?" Her silence spoke volumes. "Lisa, giving yourself to another man is more than just physical. The moment you started thinking of him, giving him your attention and intimacy, it became an affair. So, I'll ask one more time, and please, be honest, How long was it really? Tears welled in her eyes. I don't know, she whispered, the weight of her guilt palpable. I was confused, and I never wanted it to go that far. Confused? I shot back, the anger boiling over. This isn't just confusion, this is a choice. You made a decision that put our family in jeopardy, and now we're all suffering the consequences. I need you to understand how deeply this hurt me, how it shattered everything we built together. Lisa looked down, unable to meet my gaze. I know I messed up. I was selfish and thoughtless. I'm so sorry, and I would do anything to take it back. But I can't change the past. All I can do is try to be there for Jake. Being there for Jake isn't enough, I replied, my voice softening slightly. He needs both of us, but we also need to figure out what happens next. I need time to think, Lisa. Time to heal. I understand, she said, her voice breaking. Just know that I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I don't want to lose you or the girls. I want to be a better person. I nodded, but my heart felt heavy. I'll give you a few weeks to figure things out. But understand, my trust has been shattered, and it's going to take a lot more than words to rebuild it. As the waiter finally approached our table, I couldn't shake the feeling that our conversation was just the beginning of a long, difficult road ahead. The future felt uncertain, and while I knew I had to make decisions for myself and Jake, part of me still yearned for the family we once were. Lisa told me it all began about 3 months before the accident, just before she turned 40. She was feeling the weight of age, and when he found out about her upcoming birthday, he showered her with compliments, telling her how young she looked. She knew it was wrong, but those words ignited something inside her, a spark that made her feel desirable again. It had been 20 years since she had been with anyone but me, and suddenly she felt like a schoolgirl again, filled with excitement. The flirting escalated, and she let herself get swept up in it. He kept asking her to dinner, and every time they shared a laugh, she felt that intoxicating rush of being wanted. On the day it happened, he took her to lunch and, without a second thought, led her straight to his hotel room, promising to order room service. Just minutes later, he seduced her, and she regretted her choices immediately. She swore it was just that one time, a momentary lapse that would never happen again. I listened, my heart heavy. Lisa, I said softly, I saw how you danced and flirted with those younger guys at your birthday party. You remember our conversation about it, right? Ever since you started going to the gym with Maria, you've changed. To be honest, I don't like this new version of you. I understand wanting to feel young and have excitement in your life, but I wish you had talked to me instead of seeking it out elsewhere. Now I feel like I'm competing with younger men, and that you've been hiding things from me. I've lost my confidence, my trust in you, and it's shaken our marriage to its core. After that, we sat in silence, each of us lost in our thoughts as the weight of our conversation hung heavily in the air. When we got home, Roger greeted us hopefully, but I just shook my head. I thanked him for watching the kids and retreated to our bedroom alone. Maria glanced at Lisa, her eyes filled with sympathy. It was clear nothing had truly changed. A month passed, and then Lisa surprised me by making dinner reservations again. This time, she took the lead. Joel, she began, her voice steady yet tinged with vulnerability, you were right about everything. I moved on without you for the last 2 years, focusing only on myself as I tried to get in shape. What I did was unforgivable, and I can't take it back, but I want to make things right. She paused, gathering her thoughts. I've been seeing a therapist to help me deal with the guilt of my actions. Every night, I cry for hours, thinking about how close I came to losing our son and how I hurt the man I love. My therapist has been a lifesaver. She's helped me understand the pain my selfish choices have caused, and I realize now how badly I've hurt you. As she spoke, I could see the struggle in her eyes. She suggested my actions were a cry for attention, maybe even a midlife crisis, but I take full responsibility. I made terrible choices. I convinced myself that I deserved to enjoy this newfound youth after working so hard to look good. At first, I just wanted to get fit, but once I lost the weight, the attention from other men made me feel young, sexy, and desirable, especially as I approached 40. I could see the shame and regret washing over her, but I wasn't sure how to respond. "What's really crazy," she added, her voice cracking, "is that I loved our life, our kids, and our marriage. I just lost sight of what truly mattered." In that moment, I felt a flicker of hope mixed with a wave of pain. Maybe we could find a way to rebuild what had been broken, but it wouldn't be easy. We both had a lot of work to do, and it was going to take time, honesty, and a lot of heart to heal the wounds we had inflicted on each other. I never imagined I could hurt you or betray your trust, but that's exactly what happened. It all began innocently enough, just some light flirting here and there. But when you caught a glimpse of it at my birthday party, I brushed it off, thinking it was no big deal. I didn't listen. Before I knew it, those casual lunches turned into something more, and I let myself slip into a moment of reckless abandon. I made a terrible mistake that I can't undo, a meaningless afternoon that shattered everything we built together. Now, I can't shake the self-loathing. I hate what I did, and I realize this isn't who I am. I need you to understand just how deeply sorry I am for the pain I've caused you and the damage I've done to our son. The weight of guilt and regret is something I carry with me every single day. This was never about my love for you or our marriage. My actions were selfish, I was only thinking about what I wanted at the time, ignoring the consequences. I know there's no excuse for what I did. I broke my vows, my promise to you, and I betrayed your trust and love. If you choose to walk away from our marriage, I'll be heartbroken, but I completely understand. You deserve happiness and to be with someone who is worthy of your trust. In the meantime, I'm determined to win you back. I remember our last dinner together when you told me I hadn't done anything to save our marriage. I was so consumed with worry about Jake that I didn't know how to fix us. Since that night, I've spent the last month reflecting on my actions, and I'm ready to show you that I'm committed to making things right. Today, I took a significant step. I resigned from my job and decided to become a stay-at-home mom. I'll be there for Jake full-time, and we can let go of the day nurses. I also had a difficult conversation with Mr. Connor, my boss. I told him everything about the affair with the supplier, knowing how much his standing in the community and church mattered. He took it seriously. He called the supplier and insisted they terminate Donnie immediately, stating that our company is their largest customer. I found out that this wasn't the first complaint they had against Donnie, and he was let go. Afterward, I felt compelled to reach out to his wife, Patricia. I went to see her and broke down, confessing everything, the affair, the hurt, and how desperately I want to fix things with you, the only man I've ever truly loved. To my surprise, she was kinder than I expected. She recognized the pain I was in and tried to comfort me, telling me it wasn't all my fault, that Donnie had a way of seducing women. But she was firm, reminding me to never disrespect the man I love again. Patricia wished me luck in rekindling our relationship and mentioned that this wasn't the first time something like this had happened, but she hoped it would be the last. I sensed she was considering seeing a lawyer after our conversation. After I left, I called Maria and told her I was canceling my gym membership. I also committed to continuing my therapy. I realize I'm a grown woman with a family that needs me, and I'm determined to be the best wife and mother I can be if you'll give me that chance again. I even went through my wardrobe and donated all the new clothes, keeping only a few outfits that are more appropriate for someone my age. The past few weeks have been a whirlwind of reflection. I've read countless articles about infidelity, and I came across stories of wives taking polygraph tests to answer their husbands' questions. From what I gathered, there are about 20 common questions that arise in these situations, and I've been preparing myself to answer them honestly, hoping to rebuild the trust that I've broken. I know it won't be easy, but I'm ready to do the work. I love you, Joel, and I want to fight for us. I scheduled an appointment at a downtown office that specialized in lie detector tests, feeling a mix of apprehension and determination. The staff there were accommodating, even though they noted that my questions were a bit unconventional. They agreed to incorporate them into the standard interrogation process. I handed over my carefully crafted list of questions, feeling a weight on my chest as I prepared for the truth to unfold. As I sat in the office, Lisa's voice broke through my thoughts. "This envelope has the answers to your questions," she said, her eyes glistening with tears. "I want you to know I haven't opened it or looked at the results. I know what's true, and I'm confident these results will show that I'm being completely honest with you." Her voice quivered with desperation. "I'll even take a lie detector test every few months if it helps you trust me again." In an unexpected twist, she revealed that she had consulted with an attorney and prepared a post-nuptial agreement to show how serious she was about winning back my trust. "If I ever mess up again, I'll give up custody of our kids and leave without support or alimony," she stated, her expression resolute. "I know this is common for people like me, cheaters. I accept that title, no matter how dirty it makes me feel. I need to atone for what I've done, and I promise to put you first from now on." I sat there, stunned, grappling with her revelations. It was clear that Lisa understood the gravity of her actions and their impact on our family. "Well, Lisa," I finally said, choosing my words carefully, "I have to admit I'm surprised by all this. It does give me something to think about. But I have to ask, why are you trying so hard to save our marriage? You lost respect for me and sought something better. Now that you've transformed into this confident, attractive woman, you could have any man you want." Her eyes widened, and she shook her head vigorously. "No, that's not it. I want us back because I love you. You were there for me when I was sick, nursed me back to health without complaint. I took your love for granted, and now I realize how precious it is. There's nobody else I want. I can't imagine being with someone else, it's always been you. I threw it away, and I've always found happiness with you. I just got lost in myself, and I promise that will never happen again." Tears streamed down her face, and soon she was sobbing uncontrollably. The hiccuping noises from her heavy cries caught the attention of other diners, and I felt a mix of sorrow and empathy wash over me. I wrapped my arms around her, holding her close as she cried into my shoulder. My heart shattered a little more with each sob, and I struggled to process the emotional toll of the moment. After a while, she calmed down and handed me the envelope again, urging me to read the report later that night when I was alone in bed. My curiosity piqued. I wondered what revelations awaited me inside. As we drove home, the weight of the day settled in. I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a long and challenging journey. The tension in the car was palpable, but a part of me held on to a flicker of hope, a tiny thread that perhaps we could find a way back to each other. She looked at me with the saddest eyes I had ever seen, her voice trembling as she pleaded, "Please don't leave us, Joel. Don't move out of our home. I'll be happy to stay in the guest room if you don't want me in your bed. I understand why you wouldn't want me there. If the roles were reversed, I know how I would react. I get it, I really do. I just want to be with you and keep our family together. Please, give me a chance to win your heart back." Once I was in my room, I took a long shower to wash away the tension. After brushing my teeth, I climbed into bed, staring at the manila envelope on my nightstand. Inside were the answers I had been seeking. Would it make a difference? Did I even want her back after everything that had happened? When I finally opened the envelope, I was stunned by the level of detail in the polygraph report. All the questions I had, every doubt and suspicion, were laid out in front of me. Lisa had clearly put a lot of effort into this, answering the questions with thoughtfulness I hadn't expected. The questions were jumbled, out of order, likely to keep her from anticipating what was coming next. It was almost amusing how poorly structured it was. A true polygraph wouldn't have asked questions in such a roundabout way. As I read through the answers, I felt a strange mix of relief and anxiety wash over me. I managed to sleep soundly that night, even as uncertainty loomed over my future. The next morning, I walked to Lisa's room and told her we needed to have a family meeting. She looked terrible, her eyes were bloodshot, and dark circles had formed under them. It was clear that she was suffering from the weight of her actions and the coldness from the rest of us. The only person still speaking to her was Jake, who had somehow found it in his heart to forgive her. As she sat nervously on the couch, I joined her and took her hand, knowing this conversation would be anything but easy. "I'll speak for all of us, Lisa," I began, trying to steady my voice. "What you've done has damaged this family and left me with the hardest decision of my life. You may not like my choice, but I have to maintain my self-respect as a man. The kids have expressed their desire to keep our family together. Up until last night, I thought there was no way I could stay here, no way I could keep living with you." I paused, taking a deep breath. "But then I read the polygraph report, and I was genuinely moved by your efforts to save our marriage. To be honest, your cheating was devastating, but the real harm was how you treated me and our family over the last 6 months. Knowing you mentally checked out and started dating another man was a betrayal I thought I couldn't forgive. And then, with everything that happened to Jake, it felt like your actions contributed to his injuries, and that's something I can't overlook." I watched her face as I continued. "If the roles were reversed and I had taken a lover that led to Jake's accident, you would have kicked me out without a second thought. Yet, despite all this pain, for some reason, I still love you. Losing you would hurt me more than the pain you've already inflicted. It's a real-life quagmire, but my love for you remains strong, despite everything." The room fell silent as I spoke, and I could see the weight of my words settle on her. It was a complicated mix of emotions, but I knew we had to face this together, no matter how difficult the road ahead might be. I couldn't stay married to her, not knowing that she had betrayed me, broken her promise to remain faithful, and forsaken our vows. It felt like I was holding on to a contract that had been shattered beyond repair. If I stayed married to Lisa, I would be accepting that her actions were okay, and that was something I couldn't do. I knew it might sound vindictive, but I was going through with the divorce. When I laid it all out for her, she was devastated. The pain in her eyes was evident, but deep down, I sensed that she understood. I had made my decision, and there was no turning back. "I forgive you, but I can't trust you anymore," I said, my voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside me. The divorce process took a couple of months to finalize, mainly because it was uncontested. We split our assets evenly, and since the kids were all grown, custody wasn't a concern. I won't bore you with every detail, but everything went surprisingly smoothly. Lisa showed genuine effort throughout the process, emphasizing that reuniting our family was her top priority. There were moments when I found myself thinking of her, not out of longing, but because of the love we had once shared. We kept in touch, and I was relieved to see that everyone, including the kids, was managing well. The tragic events of that day began to fade into the past, a chapter that we all agreed to leave closed. Jake made a full recovery, and after months of physical therapy, he developed a newfound passion for working out. Watching him grow stronger and more resilient filled me with pride. As for me, I wasn't seeing anyone at the moment. Instead, I found myself looking forward to whatever the future might hold. As for Donnie, karma had a way of catching up with him. He faced the consequences of the damage he inflicted on my family and our marriage. His wife kicked him out and served him divorce papers shortly after Lisa confessed everything to her. I heard he ended up in a tiny studio apartment after being fired from his job. His attempts at dating didn't fare much better. As soon as women learned about his cheating history, they would ghost him. I found out about Donnie's struggles through his ex-wife, who surprisingly reached out to me. She thought it might help provide some closure regarding Lisa's affair. I was taken aback but appreciated the gesture. It was a reminder that, while our stories were intertwined in pain, there was a chance for healing. Once, I read a quote that resonated with me. Sometimes giving someone a second chance is like giving them an extra bullet after they missed you the first time, hoping that this time the extra bullet won't be used. It was a poignant reminder of the risks involved in relationships, and it encapsulated the reality of what Lisa and I had gone through. As I looked toward the horizon, I felt a mix of hope and trepidation. The past was a teacher, and while it had been painful, it had also made me stronger. I was ready to embrace whatever came next, whether it was new love or simply a deeper understanding of myself. Life had a way of moving forward, and so would I.